Those burn marks I see in his eye sockets.
Yes, and some grey dust. Ash, it seems, very fine.
Murderer gouged out his eyes, then put burning coals in the sockets.
So it seems. Looking at the wounds, it appears our woodcarver was still alive when it happened.
See this? Incision made into the voice box.
Indeed, so thin as to be nearly unnoticeable.
A small, extremely sharp instrument. Scalpel.
But why? The wound is too small to bleed, and there are signs of swelling. The murderer... I believe he performed a tracheotomy, so the victim wouldn't die too soon.
Let's examine his torso.
What have we here? Deep wound on the left side of his rib cage, and a scar the length of his stomach.
Look at the scar. Wounds long and thin, an incision, but the edges are ragged.
Means nothing. Look, no swelling, no bruises. An old injury, perhaps an accident in the workplace.
Open the abdominal cavity.
Due warning, it will stink of rot.
Once fought a Zoogle up to my waist in sewage, so I doubt... Wait. Smells not rot.
Formaldehyde. A medical novelty. Heavily diluted, it's remarkable at preserving organic tissue. In stronger proportions, it's more destructive than acid.
Explains why there's no smell of decay, and why his throat's scalded. Let's examine his torso.
What have we here?
Let's examine the chest wound. Yeah, heart carved out, wound cauterized.
Wait a minute, there's something else.
An egg from an amphibian. A salamander? Scorched but intact.
I attended some lectures in herpetology as a student. I'm afraid I don't recall any amphibians that would lay eggs in corpses. So either Professor Cochrane was deeply mistaken, or this is our murderer's doing.
Look at his hands. These welts. Rope burns, right? He was tied up.
I'd expect so. No one could sit through such torture unless bound.
Speaking from experience?
Yes, that of a victim. Spent a year in the dungeons of Tretogor. Long story.
Some other time, maybe. See the callus? Our dwarf wore a ring, but someone took it off him. See anything interesting on his legs?
His right foot. The ankle swollen, toenails broken. He clearly kicked something very hard. Right before he kicked the bucket.
Doesn't strike me as the right time for jokes.
Apologies. We surgeons, we've a different sensibility.
Mm-hmm. And a different sense of humor. His genitals. We ought to inspect those.
I see. You clearly find gonads fascinating. I fear I don't share your passion. Let's focus on other parts of his anatomy, shall we?
His genitals. We ought to inspect those.
I see. You clearly find gonads fascinating. I fear I don't share your passion. Let's focus on other parts of his anatomy.
His genitals. We ought to inspect those.
I see. You clearly find gonads